We did a film with Michael Douglas in 2000. It was in Mallorca. It was blazing hot. It was a house his mother had bought with his father. And behind Michael Douglas, overwhelmingly, was Kirk Douglas, which he joked about, the fact of having a father who had overthrown the Roman Empire, ravaged Britain as great leader of the Vikings, won great boxing matches, was in some of the definitive westerns, and that was the father. And it was tough in every way. And when Michael tried, at the beginning of his life, to follow his father at school and acted in a play to his father came to see, this is a lesson for all people who want to encourage their children. He came to his father and said, "What was I like?" Kirk Douglas said, "You were terrible." Nevertheless, he persisted, and he didn't do terribly well until he went into television, and he worked on TV drama Streets of San Francisco, where he learned a lot and did a lot. And then he hit the jackpot when he produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, for which he got an Oscar and was in the film world then. And then he drove through Wall Street, where Stone made him be angrier and angrier, and he won an Oscar for that, and defined a lot of people's views of what money-making was like, and greed is good. It became a real token. Look, we're not just greedy, we're good because greed is good. Greed makes the world go on. Where would the world of capitalism be without greed? And we are the greedy ones, but we're also the good ones. It went round. It was a hell of a phrase, and he was a terrific performance, and he got an Oscar for it. And then there was Basic Instinct and Fatal Attraction, and on he went into great stardom.
There was a tremendous shadow. I mean, I think it had as much to do with one's masculinity as anything else. I mean, you saw this man up on the screen, you know, leading armies, gladiators, you know, cutting off his ear. He had a, you know, tremendous presence, screen presence that also fell over into his life as a father. So there was an intimidating factor just by who he was.
When did you realize that after all you were going to be an actor? Was there a moment? Did it grow?
Oh, I wish I could say it did, but the actual moment for me was I was in my third year of college, 1966. I was a hippie, and I got called into the vice chancellor's office, and they said, "You're a junior, third year of college, you have to declare a major." I said, "A major?" I said, "Yes, you have to have an emphasis. What are you going to major in?" I said, "I don't know. You know, I'm having a good time." And I thought because my mother was an actress and my father was an actor, so I said theater.
Well, she got her daddy's car and she cruised through the hamburger stand now. Seems she forgot all about the library like she told her old man now.
I was in a private prep school. Thus, I was all boys, and I came here and I went, wow.
Michael Douglas went back to Santa Barbara in 1999 to talk to the students on his old campus.
This is the first thing I'd ever done on stage when I had finally declared a major, which was pretty late in the time. And I had to come down the aisle right here, and my father was sitting in about the 8th row, and lo and behold, it turned out that I had to stop right about where he was. And this is about how it went. My lord, that bidder comes to very near Massini's very near. He was not 3 leagues and when I met him.
I just remember as I was looking at the stage in my seat, suddenly like a person came down the aisle, gee, it's my son. And then he didn't have much to say.
I have heard that Don Pedro hath bestowed much honor on a young Florentine called Claudio.
Much deserved on his part, equally remembered by Don Pedro. He had borne himself beyond the province of his age, joining the figure of a land, the feats of a lion. He indeed been the fellow.
The curtain goes down, I go backstage. He said, "Dad, how was I?" I said, "Michael, you were terrible."
And he left the theater and quietly told him, he said, "Well, thank goodness I don't have to ever worry about my son becoming an actor." So that was it. So there's hope for all of you yet, no matter what you're planning on doing. I've come to believe that if you are the son or daughter of a famous parents, or either your father or your mother, that you tend to be a late bloomer, tends to take you a little longer to find out who you are and what you wanted to do.
Why is that?
I I think probably fear of failure. I'm fascinated with the idea that I exist because of two people's love for acting. My mother was 16 years old when she was tall for her age. She lied about her age, came to New York City to become an actress. And very good family, went to school in the Isle of Wight. And of course, as you say, opposites attract. And who does she meet but this Russian peasant, you know, Jewish guy older than she was, and they were both at the same acting school.
What do you think, looking back, you picked up from hanging out around the theatre in New York and around film sets, mainly on the West Coast, around about there?
I think that I learned a lot about the stamina and the discipline. My father talked about listening a lot, talked about how to tell a good actor is somebody who's listening, not when he's talking. But I also saw from him the effort, the work, this is both, he had a production company and all of that. With my mother was the joy.
And do you think you've kept that?
It took a long time, I think, just to get over. I had terrible stage fright when I first started. When I started in college, I used to go on stage. Before I got on stage, I had a little wastebasket right by the stage, and it was just a tremendous challenge just for me to get out there.
Why do you think you had that? I mean, have you looked back on it? Where do you think the stage fright came from?
Well, I was shy. I mean, I was generally a shy person. I was not was somewhat of an introvert. Usually comes from a lack of confidence.
So why did you keep pushing yourself?
Because I didn't know what else to do.
After a series of flops, Michael Douglas's acting career took off in a TV cop series.
The Streets of San Francisco, a Quinn Martin production.
Your success in the television series Streets of San Francisco, did that, you think, helped you, or did it help and slightly get in the way? Because there was a certain snobbery towards television, wasn't there, in Hollywood or that time?
It was the most important time in my life. One, because I was still camera shy, going back to those times of being stage fright. And by doing 26-hour episodes
How does camera shy the show itself?
Well, there's attention. There's just the sense that the camera reminds you very much of the X-ray machine in your dentist's office, with the same kind of results. So there's a lack of freedom of movement, a lack of freedom of expression, a self-consciousness. But what happened back there, it really didn't have very much to do with justice. It had a hell of a lot to do with the use of power.
Your first Oscar came as a producer with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. How did that come about?
That came about because of my father's good taste.
I went to Broadway. I played it for 6 months. The people didn't know how to take it. I said to my wife, I have brought them a classic and they don't even know it. So for 10 years, I tried to make that in the movie. And Michael said, Dad, let me try to set up the picture. Go ahead.
There's a vote before the group. Everyone in favor of changing the schedule, please raise your hand.
Okay, I want to see the hands. Come on. Which one of you nuts has got any guts? All right. That's it.
I only count 9 votes, Mr. McMurphy.
He only counts 9. Only 9. It's a landslide.
How did you persuade your father to give up the idea of playing Randall McMurphy? He'd obviously set his heart on it from what we read.
Yeah. Well, that was the most awkward and painful part of the whole process. Mind you, again, I, even as one of the 2 producers, does not have casting control, and that was really Milos Forman's.
Of course, I was furious. Jack Nicholson played my part, and I wanted to see him do a lousy performance. But he was so good.
Show her that you can do it. Just show her that you can still do it. Just raise your hand up. All the guys have got them up. Just raise your hand up, Chief, will you? Huh? come on. There's got to be one guy in here that's not a total. Mac? Chief! The chief! Ah!
It's interesting that when you came into to Hollywood, you came in, as it were, from the outside with this, by force of circumstances, as an independent, which is again a bit like your father did. I mean, have you found that to be a strength retrospectively?
It was, but it came about after being rejected by everyone, and it became a tremendous strength because I think another quality that I've inherited from my father is anger, directed, controlled in a positive way, used as a false sense of energy. This sort of rejection that I got both for the project and about me, only to be accepted by somebody, ironically, from the outside, even though I was the insider, was an important part, and it made me really trust my instincts much more in the rest of my career about what I was doing.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
In 1987, Michael Douglas starred in Wall Street, for which he won an Oscar for his portrayal of the ruthless businessman Gordon Gekko. Did you see Gekko as a villain?
The secret of playing a villain is you never think of him being.
Yeah, but looking at the film now, think at the film now you've done it.
Oh yeah, he was a bad guy. He was a bad guy. But we have a big fascination with villains.
Did it surprise you that this character seemed to stand for America? How do you see that?
Monetary gains at all expense. I mean that you could fire people, no conscious awareness of their own lives, dismantle companies, put people out of work, anything that would increase the net worth or your value.
I guess there was a crisis on day 2 or 3 or 4 of his performance, and I just called him into question and I challenged him on it, on his readings, and I did so probably in an abrupt manner because it was a concern, you know, about making this entire movie work, and did I have the wrong choice? Had I made the wrong choice?
Oliver came into my trailer one day and he said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You doing drugs or anything?" I said, "No, what? What are you talking about?" He said, "Because you look like you never acted in your life before." You know, Gordon Gekko proceeded to, the air came out of Gordon. I said, "Geez, normally I hate going, I never watch dailies, the shooting, because I always look at everything as critical, but if there's a problem, I go." So I said, "I better go take a look." He said, "Yeah, you better." So I went to go see the scenes, and I thought they were pretty good. And I came back, and I said, "Oliver, I thought they're pretty good." He says, "Yeah, they are, aren't they?" I said, what are you doing, you know? And the long and the short of it was that he was happy, but he wanted just a little more edge, a little more anger.
Were you aware that he was provoking you, or just did you calculate?
No, he did a good job. He just wound me up pretty good. That's all I knew. Doing sex scenes in movies is not easy because it's the one act where the entire audience are your judges. I mean, most people have not shot somebody, or most people have not had some horrific sequence that ever's going to happen, but everybody knows about sex. You know, you do it like a dance, just like you're learning a dance. You know, you say, okay, you go beat by beat. I'm going to take your hand, I'll put you up here first, right? And what do you want to do? Then you go here, and you go here. So you start, and then you go, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And then you bring it back up to speed. They're comfortable because it's not like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It makes it easier, and then you feel like, you know, as a team, you kind of high-five each other and said, we did it.
Like Wall Street, it actually was another film which got involved in the way America was talking about itself, didn't it? What was your view of the sort of political undercurrents in the film?
We knew it was a dicey picture where your protagonist was an adulterer in the first act, cheated on his beautiful wife, you know, and we're worried how we were going to bring them back. But for some reason, and I don't really know why, I've always been, I like the gray area. I just don't see things black and white. I think we all have larceny in us. We make moral decisions not to, or we do. And I've always been attracted to the struggle that people do to do the right thing. And a Fatal Attraction, it was about, it was a morality tale about, about the worst possible nightmare of making a bad choice.
He's very, very good at playing weakness. He's very, very good at playing embattled masculinity. And there's something mistrustful about him. He's very charismatic. You'd follow him, but you'd also wonder if he might turn on you at any stage. He's prey to his baser impulses and urges, I think. And all of that is very interesting, and all of that is actually very difficult to play. It's very hard to play weakness. He's not James Stewart. He's not Gary Cooper. He's not Tom Hanks. He's certainly not Kirk Douglas, even, who is a much more sort of upstanding, rugged view of American masculinity. There's something a little bit broken about Michael Douglas, and that is what makes him interesting.
Miss Trammell?
What was it about the Nick Curran part that drew you to it?
Again, a moral dilemma, somebody struggling with destructive qualities in his life.
What's your new book about?
A detective. He falls for the wrong woman.
What happens?
She kills him.
I am obviously attracted or recognize that there is darkness, and like to expose it.
You had to cope with the idea of being this sex-addicted person, which the press... I mean, how did you cope with that?
Not well. I mean, I'm fairly okay, but it hurts the people close to you. It's been well documented. At that time, I went into rehab, a 30-day rehab for alcohol, and but that was sort of a boring old story. So it was right after Basic Instinct, so that became this handle.
How do you feel you have to cope with that? Do you think, oh well, they're taking it too seriously, or?
I do. I make them for myself. I mean, I do this for myself, and have now had enough success to know there's a few other crazy people out there who also might want to see these things, you know. But I don't try to guess the audience, the time, or take a temperature reading on what's going on. I mean, I read a lot of newspapers. I feel like I'm aware of current events and what's happening. But I do it for me, truthfully.
The thing about actors is they have periods when they're in fashion and periods when they're not. I think Michael Douglas was so identified with a certain period of time and a certain style of smart, nasty, nihilistic mainstream Hollywood that inevitably he would fade out for a bit. And such was the case in the noughties, really. It really wasn't until Steven Soderbergh came back and cast him as Liberace in Behind the Candelabra where he became incredibly exciting and relevant again. All of which came out of his battle with cancer, in that he was on chemotherapy and having radiation and struggled to even get through the role. But that was his great redemption, and it's a superb performance. And the weird thing about Michael Douglas, particularly with regards to that film, is that for a man who's so good at playing these fragile, vain, thin-skinned individuals, it's a remarkably unvain performance.
You said earlier in the interview that you have an anger in you that gives you your drive, that like your father, you have an anger in you, you have an anger in you, so that gives you your drive. What do you see as your father's anger and what do you see as yours?
My father's anger, I think, came out of, from reading his autobiography, was anti-Semitism. And the fact that he was a white Russian blonde was not perceived as being a Jew. He then saw stuff and how people behaved that that deeply affected him in his climb. Mine, I think, was more about acceptance or acknowledgement or achieving